All right. Now let's go to since we've gone live. Let's go see what's going on in the world. And where are we at? Here we go. Good source of news. Are you not bullish enough? That's kind of funny, actually. I think that's good. Big tech buying panic despite PPI explosion. PPI explosion? Really? What PPI explosion would that be? Remember, I told you guys there's different ways that you can look into the future. Not a long way into the future, not super predictably long term into the future, but you can definitely look into the future. Boy, those redistricting things came just in time, you know? If the Republicans hadn't done that, would have been a bloodbath. Because I think people are pretty pissed right now. And by the way, if you think this war has cost $29 billion, I got a bridge I'd love to sell you, because $29 billion? $29 billion maybe in fuel for the airplanes and fuel for the carriers and bombs that we dropped. Okay, I'd go with that. How much for all the military bases that got blown up that we haven't even talked about yet? Some of which we haven't even admit got blown up. What's that going to cost? So, and of course, these are all numbers directly related to the war. I just went and saw the gas price, and the gas price here in Phoenix is now $5.50 a gallon? I think it's $5.50 a gallon. I just remember looking at it and going, wow, that sucks for a lot of people. Anybody who drove out to the suburbs and just kept driving outside of town until the price of homes fell to where they could afford a home, and just said, fuck it, I can just buy a fucking Honda. I can buy a Honda and get 38 miles per gallon. Well, okay. Yeah, you did that. Unfortunately, what you didn't realize is that it's going to cost you approximately $5,000 more per year now to drive to and from work. That's the average American. If you have a long commute, say longer than 30 miles, which a lot of people do, believe it or not. I know a lot of people that are like, yeah, man, I just pop in my, my favorite podcast, and I just cruise, and, on the way home, I smoke a joint, and then an hour and a half doesn't really bother me. And it's like, wow. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. First casualty of war. We've known this for thousands of years. The first casualty of war is always truth. Period. If people told the truth about what was really going on, it was Iron or Biden. I'm not exactly sure what your point is. Jen, are you trying to compel me to love Trump because the inflation under Biden was even more fucked up? Was that your point? Was like, hey, I know this is terrible, and we've gotten people killed, Tens of thousands of people around the Middle East have gotten killed, including some of our own people who are the only ones that count. But hey, guess what? Interest was higher under Biden. So it's really a good thing. Is that what you're saying? I mean, kind of curious. Because I think what you just did there was you tried to defend the indefensible. See, the indefensible is when you run for president of the United States and you say, there will be no wars. Gaza will be over my first day. If you elect me instead of Kamala Harris, I will end the Ukraine war on day one. I will get rid of federal income tax and I will replace it with tariffs on other countries like we had for the first 150 years of our great union. What is that? I mean, is that what you're saying? You're saying that, oh, look, hey, but it was, it was higher under Biden. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it was. Because of the stimulus, because of the completely insane way we handled COVID. Now, do I blame Trump for his handling of COVID? No, he's not a medical doctor. He did what he was told to do by the experts, which was, and I quote, trust the science. And if you attack Tony Fauci, you are attacking science because he is science. Mr. Blake, that is literally the stupidest comment I've ever had on here, ever. Literally in 5 years of doing Tic Tac, that was the dumbest thing anybody's ever said. He did. He does. He has control. Republicans have control of every fucking thing. Oh my God. Did you literally just come on here and say that? Well, if it weren't for the fact that the Senate is controlled by the majority of Democrats, and Nancy Pelosi, she's got this secret ability to outvote the Donald. What? By the way, he just said today, you gotta love his honesty. He said, I don't care how much this costs the American taxpayer. Yeah, somebody had the audacity to ask him what he thought about the American taxpayer having to bear the burden for this war. And he said, I don't care how much it costs them. Well, okay. That's very blunt of you. I suppose if there were an award for bluntosity, you, Mr. President, would get that award today. Because that was some blunt shit right there. What? Who said that? Really? David, come on, man. Quit. Nobody believes that anymore. Nobody believes in presidents, period. Look, Biden was a disaster. Trump's a disaster. They're disasters. They're all disasters. And why? Because they don't run the country. Come on, David. Oh no, Trump's so strong that he controls the country. Really? Really? It's not a bunch of billionaires. It's not the oil companies. It's not the defense contractors. It's not, Israel with AIPAC spending billions of dollars to influence all of our representatives. AIPAC has a single handler for every single senator and every single congressman. They have their own APAC babysitter who touches base with them every day. Wow. That's a lot of control and manipulation. Yep, that's a lot of control and manipulation. So here's my point. Right now, PPI is surging past 6% now. If you don't know what PPI is, that's the crystal ball. Consumer price index is how they're screwing you right now. The PPI is how they're going to screw you in 6 months. It's the producer price index. It's what the people who make the products that you're going to have to pay too much for, it's what they're paying for their ingredients. So what are they buying lumber for instance? What are they paying for fuel? What are they paying all of these costs for? How much has that gone up? Well, that's jumped 6% already. In 10 years? No, in a month. When I said that inflation will be at 10%, I didn't mean it'll be at 10% in 10 years. The target rate for inflation is 2%. Nobody's touched 2% for the last 5 years, period. So I guess they just decided, fuck it, these wars are so much fun. Why even worry about inflation? So they're going to go out there and just keep on spending. Now, we were hoping that the new guy who's replacing the old guy at the Fed, which, by the way, the fact that it doesn't look like Trump's going to be able to fire that woman from the Federal Reserve Bank. Think about that for a second. If the Federal Reserve, because a lot of idiots think that the Federal Reserve is a federal bank, but it's not. It has nothing to do with the government. It's a private institution. So the president doesn't have the authority to fire somebody at the Federal Reserve? Nope. Nope. Absolutely not. You are the president of the United States. You're part of the U.S. government, but the Federal Reserve is a privately owned institution, and you have no authority over it as the president. Now that's interesting. So what does that mean? That means that if you think that you can just hang on to some dollars in your savings account, you are very mistaken. What's next? Well, they tried hantavirus. That didn't distract us. They tried alien disclosure. And the alien disclosure, the other day, I said, I don't. Somebody asked me on here, and I said, not feeling it. I'll look at it, but I'm not feeling it. Well, I looked at it just enough to realize that it is such a load of horse shit, such garbage, that it's actually horrifyingly embarrassing that anybody took this UFO disclosure seriously. The one thing that everybody's talking about is this thing that looks like a star. Oh my God, it's a star. Yeah. Watch it closely. It's a fucking flare. You can see the parachute in the background, and you can see, based on the direction of the parachute, where this thing is swinging. It's a fucking flare. It's a military flare. And guess what? If you've got any kind of shit on your lens, something that is a round light just shoots out beams everywhere. I know, because every time I try to take a picture with my iPhone, I go, oh, fuck, it's all dirty, and I have to rub it on my shirt to get a good shot of something. There was a German April Fool's prank that showed some people holding hands with a little tiny alien. It was in the paper in Germany 50, 80, 100 years ago, whatever it was. Black and white photograph. It's just a joke. Oh, but that's part of the alien disclosure. Really? That's it's time, guys. It's time. This only has one potential outcome now. See, that's your opinion. Yeah, aliens may be real, but they're not stupid. That's my point. If you can cross the cosmos, you can probably keep a bunch of dumb rednecks from spotting you too. And the idea that you're going to be able to cross the cosmos in order to anally probe something, like, I don't know, a husband and wife from Pennsylvania, and not be able to at least erase their memory of it. I mean, come on. I know I've woken up a couple times when I was in the Marine Corps and I couldn't remember the night before. And I'm pretty sure an alien didn't probe me, but my point is that that's just alcohol. You don't think they've got something a little more advanced than that? Come on. It's embarrassing. It's not about going fast. It's about folding time and space. That's what we don't understand, because nobody wants to do a lot of research into what's faster than the speed of light, because we've already established that nothing moves faster than the speed of light, which of course is complete bullshit. Any idiot can see that. I mean, it's just so patently obvious that things move faster than the speed of light. It's just like, well, wait, no. Nothing moves faster than 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum. We all know that number. But my point is that, yeah, it's called what Einstein called spooky interaction at a distance. Now, you might call it quantum entanglement. Well, theoretically, time travel is possible, but apparently only backwards, not forwards. So, well, I mean, it's entirely possible. It would be really nice if they came here to help us not end the world. On the other hand, we're giving them credit for being kind and loving and maternal, but maybe they're just massively intelligent. Have you ever thought of that? If they're massively intelligent and completely non-emotional, then they make Spock look like a crybaby, which means they wouldn't interfere at all. They wouldn't touch us. They'd simply observe. It's entirely possible, you know. I've seen the movie They. I wish I had some of those glasses, but I've seen the movie. And is it possible? Yeah. Do I spend a lot of time thinking about which people among us might be aliens? No, never. Actually, never. And the reason is, if they are among us, the odds of me figuring it out pretty slim. Well, keep in mind that I think you're talking about let's see, not muons. Maybe it is muons. But yeah, it was a test that they did from CERN to northern Italy, and it appeared that some of the particles got there faster than was physically possible. So, do I believe that there are other life forms in the universe? Absolutely. There's no question. How could there not be? How could there not be? I mean, I study this shit. Hydrogen's everywhere. Oxygen's everywhere. Helium is everywhere. iron, carbon. I mean, all the things that make us us, they're not unique to this planet at all. What about warmth? Not unique. What about liquid water? Well, what kind of water? Like liquid methane or like H2O? Because H2O, yeah, there's H2O on Mercury. What? How could there be, like, wait a minute. That's impossible. Oh no, and there's actually frozen water on Venus, on obviously Earth, on Mars, all the rocky planets, including Pluto, which apparently has an active core, which is hard to even understand. Like, it's just a tiny rock so far from the sun that you can barely pick the sun out from the background stars in pictures that were taken from New Horizon looking back. It's like, well, which one of those tiny little specks is us? But it still seems to have an active core. Now, what would make the core active? The only thing they can think of is tidal forces being pulled and pushed by things that move past it. Now, these things, you wouldn't feel it if you were standing on Pluto as another one of these, Neptunian objects went by. You wouldn't feel like, whoa, that thing pulled on me. But it would pull on Pluto enough that it might make the mantle shift, generate heat inside. Who knows? But, that's the kind of thing I do think about. On the other hand, there are certain things that I have no control over. I have no control over whether or not we admit that right now we absolutely could not possibly go to Mars. We can't go to Mars. In the next 10 or 15 years, we might be able to get there, but it'll be a death sentence for anybody who goes. They will never be able to get back. We do not have anything close to the technology to go to Mars right now, period. And anybody who says we do is just full of shit. Look, I talked to the NASA scientists. I've talked to the guys who build these rockets, and they're like, nope, can't do it. We don't want to admit it, but we can't do it. We can't go to the bottom of the ocean. We can't go to the Challenger Deep in the Marianas Trench because pretty sure we've done it a couple times. Hell, what's his name? The director of Titanic actually went by himself. He spent a lot of money to do it. And as far as whether or not we went to the moon, that's a tough one, man. I can tell you this, the Van Allen radiation belts are no joke. They are no joke. James Cameron, exactly. Yeah, James Cameron spent a fortune to build that little tiny submarine. And I got to tell you, man, he may be an asshole to work for, but of course it's a bunch of woke Hollywood sissies that are saying that. But he may be a tough dude to work for, but you want to talk about adventure? That dude's an adventurer. Hey, put me in a glass tube and send me 36,000 feet down into the deepest, darkest part of the ocean. Okay. The Trieste, when it went down back in the 60s, it had a French and an American submariner on board. And they said that at about 24,000 feet, the only window, which looks basically like an ice cream cone. It's about that big on the inside, and it's about that big on the outside, and it's about that thick. And it fits into the Trieste was a bathyscaphe, basically. It's not really a submarine in the sense that it doesn't go anywhere. It just drops straight down. So they dropped this thing straight down at 24,000 feet. They said they heard this bang, and they looked, and there was a crack in the window. At which point, the American turned to the Frenchman and said, That's not good. What do you want to do? And the Frenchman said, well, if it were going to blow out, it would have blown out and we wouldn't even know it. So I say we keep going. Fucking French. I like them. All right. So they went all the way to the bottom. Now, the problem is, of course, they didn't realize this, but as soon as they touched the bottom, which has got silt that is just, it's like baby powder. As soon as they touched the bottom, everything clouded up. They really didn't see shit and they had to come back up, which was exactly what happened to James Cameron, I believe, on his first go round. His second go round, he went down and he was very careful about touching down. And there's life at the bottom of the Challenger Deep, 36,000 feet down. That's amazing. If you dropped Mount Everest into that chasm, you wouldn't be able to see Mount Everest anymore because it would literally be 7,000 feet below the surface. The tip of Mount Everest, if you were looking off the side of your ship, you couldn't possibly see it because it would be 7,000 feet below the surface. That's how deep that chasm is. And it runs all the way. It runs all the way along Guam, and I don't know if it goes all the way to American Samoa. I don't think it goes quite that far. Of course, it goes past the Marianas Islands. But it's pretty amazing stuff. IRS agents are at the bottom. It'd be really awesome if every attorney in the world were at the bottom. That would be fantastic. I believe that was Shakespeare. I would never say anything crude like first kill all the attorneys. That was Shakespeare that said that. I would never say anything like that. That's just rude. Do I think anyone will find MH370? I'm not convinced MH370 was ever lost. Come on, really? It's like, come on, it's a big airplane. That's a big airplane. You just, I don't know, just went, it just disappeared. It just disappeared. You can literally tell when somebody comes home drunk based on their Ring camera and go arrest them after the fact, but you can't tell me where an airplane disappeared over the ocean in spite of the fact that you're watching every square foot of Earth from space with thousands of satellites. I'm not buying it. Speaking of buying it, silver's up again today, as you knew it would be. I know you knew. I know. You were saying, hey, it's going to be pushing 90 by the end of the week. Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be. And yes, I actually have some. And I have a much better deal than everybody else. Can you believe that these, I don't know what else to call them, these fuckers, my competitors. Actually, some of them are people I buy wholesale from. So, but you know what? I buy wholesale and then I sell at just about wholesale. They sell at retail, which is why JM Bullion, for instance, oh shit, it's on here. JM Bullion, I saw this. It's $102. No, that's not what they advertised. They advertised an ounce of silver is like $97. And then you go there, and I did this, and I was like, okay, well, let me get a few ounces of that. Buy 10 ounces. And they're like, oh yeah, plus shipping. That's $9 an ounce. Oh, so you're charging over $100 an ounce? Yep, everybody is, except for, believe it or not, Atmex, the most expensive people in the country, because they're shipping it for free, even though it says $87.59 right now, and they're selling it for $97. I mean, unless you want to buy 1,000 ounces, but you know, if you want to buy 1,000 ounces, call me. I'll sell you 1,000 ounces a hell of a lot cheaper than they will. That's a fact. So anyway, enough about silver. It will be between $150 and $300 by the end of the year. one of two things happens. Either A, the war pumps the price up because look at the consumer price index, look at the producer price index. Everything is skyrocketing in price. There's nothing that you eat that does not need energy. And I'm not saying, okay, well, you have to have an X amount of fertilizer. But if you have fertilizer, you're fine. No, if you have fertilizer, you're still not fine. And by the way, nobody does. But even if you do have fertilizer, you're still not okay. And the reason you're not okay is because once you grow it, you have to move it. Now, how much are we going to be moving it? Well, what we grow here, we're going to be moving a lot of that because right now, Europe has nothing. They are literally about to start rationing out gasoline, which means they don't have any fertilizer. They don't have all the nitric acid and all the stuff that they're going to need to make fertilizer. All of these places that produce wheat, like the Ukraine, where are they going to get it? After the war is silver? No, because after the war, silver will go up because of production, because people are still producing solar panels, computers, information centers. All of these things require an enormous amount. We're using right now for the economy pre-war, we were using 3.6 billion ounces of silver every year. We're only producing worldwide 800 million ounces. Well, we're not even producing 1 billion ounces. How the hell are we going to get 3.6? We're not. Well, do we have 3.6 billion ounces in reserve? Yeah, we've got about 1 year. Okay, but what about the following year? No, we don't. So what does that mean for the price? Look, if you're Tesla, you don't make cars without silver. So if silver's 150, you buy it. If it's 350, you buy it. Period. So what does that mean for a Tesla, though? If you're going to go buy a Model S, well, if you're going to go buy a Model S, it just means that you're going to pay an extra $300, $400, $500 for it. They're just going to tack it on to the price. How many ounces of silver? Well, for a Tesla, it's about a kilo. Oh, well, a kilo is a lot. Yeah, it's 30 plus ounces. It's quite a bit for every solar panel. Trump says he wants to make 100 million solar panels. Okay, well, right there, that's 100 million ounces just for the solar panels, not the connectors, not the infrastructure, not the inverters, not the power stations, none of that. Just for the panels themselves. Okay, well, computers, cell phones. I sure do. I ship it myself. Never had a problem with it. I did just have a little bit of a wrinkle with a shipment, but believe it or not, it's because we paid extra. We paid extra, and without realizing it, by paying the extra for the super special delivery, the post office not only doesn't report where it is because they figure, well, if it's super special, maybe it's valuable and therefore we shouldn't tell anybody who's got it or where it is or who's transporting it and what time it'll be delivered. And so, it's hard to track. They're very hard to track, and they take longer because each postal carrier has to hand it to the next postal carrier. They can't use machines. The package cannot go through the machine process. So the 2 days that it normally takes to go from point A to point B, nope. They say 2 days, maybe 3. It's 5 or 6 minimum because they have to hand deliver it from one carrier to another. Even in the processing buildings, they have to take it and walk it over and hand it, and then somebody has to sign for it, take it to the next guy who signs for it. So needless to say, we're not doing super duper special processing anymore because it's totally irrelevant. Yes, the ramen noodles are there for a reason. It's time for everybody to get going. Yes. Yeah. Buy beans, buy legumes, buy lentils for sure. Lots of protein. Buy huge bags of rice. I mean, look, this. Oh yeah, this is actually emergency stuff. This isn't like, oh hey, the economy's going to shit. You better get some good baby wipes. No, that's for worst case scenario. If the water goes completely out because the power's gone, then yes, because taking showers will be suicide in most parts of the country, unless you live next to a river. And by the way, I expect that in about August of this year, I will be leaving Phoenix for good, because we're getting to the point now where this is no longer a hypothetical danger. We're getting to the point now where the system will break, period. And it will break catastrophically, whether that's people going apeshit over a central bank digital currency that is directly tied to your social score, or whatever the case is, or what I think, which is, I think that at this point there are just too many people out there that do not like the United States, and if we don't, oh well, yeah, we've been running out of water in AZ for 80 years, but we've still got some water. The problem is, do you want to live in a place where water is more valuable than gold and silver? Why would you do that? That is absolutely idiotic. There are places all around the United States that have access to enormous amounts of water, enormous amounts of natural food sources, growing seasons that are twice, 3 times as long as something like Arizona. So why would you live in a desert? Why would you do that? Why would you live in the very, very, very northern part of North Dakota? Well, I mean, yeah, do you have a growing season? Absolutely. Is it short? Yeah. It's literally half the growing season of, say, I don't know, Arkansas, Missouri, any of those places, Oklahoma. I mean, these are places where the growing season is going to be twice as long. So, and is the growing season going to be important? Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Well, I've thought about Colorado. The only problem that I have with Colorado, I actually found a place that would have been great for all of us to sort of, call home in an emergency. The problem is the valley that it sits in, number one, is the coldest part of Colorado, bar none. The Sangria Mountains are on one side. What's going on here? What the hell did I just get a warning for? Restricted search results because it redirects users to purchase products outside TikTok. Can you really buy beans? And I don't get it. Anyway, no, Colorado is, the problem with Colorado is that, number one, it's extremely cold in that valley. So you can get past that, because a couple of the properties that I looked at had massive greenhouses, brand new greenhouses on them, commercial greenhouses. Okay. In the summertime, spring, summer, it's beautiful there. In the winter, it's brutally cold. However, these greenhouses, fantastic. That high up, you don't have to deal. See, here's a lot of people don't think about stuff like this. This is kind of shit that goes on in my head all day, and unfortunately sometimes all night. Solar power. Is solar power efficient in Arizona? Yes and no. Is it efficient in Yuma? It's relatively efficient, yes. You get a lot of sunlight. Is it more efficient in Prescott? Well, on a sunny day, it's a lot more efficient. Why is that? The altitude. See, in Yuma, it's 125 degrees. And so everything is hot. Heat creates resistance for electrons. So if I want my electrons to be on their toes and be as quick as possible and haul ass, from point A to point B, well, I want it to be sunny, but I'd like it to be cool and sunny. So in a perfect world, you'd have a place that's cold and sunny year round. The mountains are perfect. So yeah. Let's see. I will tell you exactly where it is. I'm still thinking about it, but to be honest with you, after really doing a lot of research, number one, I'm not sure I like Colorado. One of the things that they're very proud of is that if you have a well, even though that entire valley is the drainage point for two huge fucking mountain ranges. And the water table is literally 5 feet below the surface. Like building a well, just dig a swimming pool, it'll fill itself. But they literally monitor your well. They are very, very careful about how much water they allow you to use. In a place with that much water, that seems odd. It's very, very much a blue Kool-Aid state. And that is a bit of an issue. So let's see, if we go outside of Alamosa, Alamosa is the highest crime of any city in Colorado, by the way. I was not terribly excited about that. However, this is 30 miles north. And if you go 30 miles north, you go north of even a place called Moffat, now you get into this place that from space looks basically like a big drainage area with some green circles on it. It's actually got a lot of farming. The biggest problem of all, of course, is that most of the farming is south of there. And it's just, it's extremely cold and extremely regulated. Now, after doing a lot of research about where you would want to live as far as survivability, let's just say that you were going to have to live, with a small group of people, 50 to 100 people. And you had to be able to absolutely take care of yourself. You could not put yourself in a situation where you had to rely on anyone else. I would say that your best bet is, let's see, I'm going to call it not necessarily Branson, Missouri, but that area. And the reason I say that is because the forest is insanely thick. The growing season is twice as long as it is in North Dakota. There are aquifers and wells everywhere. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what it boils down to is, so I'll give you an example. There are places like just there's so much water in Missouri, it's ridiculous. No. We used to make fun of Apache Junction for being like where meth came from. Prescott is a lot safer. Prescott is one of the few areas in Arizona that I don't think has as big a drug problem. When it comes to like Payson's they consider themselves the heart of Arizona. It's the heart of Arizona, and it's very much Arizona. It's been completely eaten by drugs, unfortunately. I think that the reason that Prescott hasn't been as affected is because it's a little more expensive. A lot of retired veterans, a lot of retired military up there. There are a couple of universities up there, one of which is specifically aerospace related. Kingman is an absolutely horrendous place to live. Unfortunately, Flagstaff is getting there. Sedona is ridiculous. It's just ridiculously expensive. And it's very small and insanely liberal. The AJ is definitely better than it was. Apache Junction, when I moved here, it was just, everybody joked about the fact that it was just all shitty mobile homes. And that's not the case anymore. It's gotten a lot better. It's not Gold Canyon, obviously, but that's probably a good thing. I would say that Apache Junction now, very, very different than it used to be, but it's still, when you're talking about crime rate, like I'll give you an example. If the grid goes down, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Apache Junction, not even close to it. And the reason is, look around it. I'm looking at it right now. The closest water to you of any real consequence would be one of the Arizona canals that runs past the 60 and 202. That's it. There's no water out there. And that a lot of people don't really think about that much, but the Salt River obviously runs north of there. What little of it runs above ground. I can tell you this, where Phoenix is, there's a lot of water, but a lot of it's 200 and 300 feet down, and we don't know if it'll still be here. That's the other problem, is that we're building all this tech and everything out in the western end of the valley, and we are going to start draining these aquifers badly, big time. So, if I were, and I'm, again, I'm still looking, because just sitting still, not a good idea. Being in a small town for what's coming is absolutely your best bet. Now, this sounds crazy, and maybe it is, but the reality is that, and I even mentioned this in my book, Utah is full of we're not supposed to call them Mormons anymore. Latter-day Saints, LDS, whatever they want to call themselves. I don't know. I grew up calling them Mormons. Anyway, every Mormon household, every Mormon family, yes, Mary, you can hit my bio and you can buy my book. But the Mormons have a tradition, it's a requirement actually, that every single Mormon household has what's called a Mormon closet. That's right. They have a year of food for all of the people in the family. Now, what virtually nobody knows, unless they're Mormon, which I'm not, but I like Mormons. I think they're cool people. So I've always been nice to them, and they've always been very nice to me. Because of that, I found out that their temples, underneath those temples, is full of food. Lots and lots and lots of canned food. And when I say canned, I mean home canned, like spiced peaches and whatnot. Now you can obviously bring stuff from the store, but you're talking about a group of people who are spread out all across the southwestern United States, from Idaho all the way down to Southern California. When I lived in Southern California, there were lots of Mormons. Hell, when I lived in Morro Bay, California, in the middle of California, my next door neighbors were Mormons. When I moved to Tempe, across the street, a nice Mormon family. So the Western United States is very heavily inundated, if you will, with Mormons. What does that mean? That means that when I say that 90% of the people in the United States will be dead if the grid goes down, not them. Not them. So whatever your beliefs are, if you consider yourself a Christian, if you consider yourself a Mormon and therefore a Christian, or a Catholic and therefore a Christian, or a Protestant and therefore a Christian, there's all kinds of silly little divisions right now. And when I say silly, I know that there are people in Northern Ireland who would kill me for saying that, but it's true. And this will be that time when you put away your silly little divisions. So if there is any type of government in the Western United States a year after the grid goes down, it will be Mormon, period. That's just a fact. Those are the people who are going to survive this the most readily. They are preparing for it right now. They're prepping. Now, they don't call it prepping for doomsday. They just call it being ready. It's like, you don't call somebody who's a Boy Scout a prepper. Why are you getting all those badges, boy? Well, because in order to become an Eagle Scout, I have to have all these badges. What are you prepping for? The end of the world? No, but when I get all my badges and I become an Eagle Scout, I'll be one formidable son of a bitch. That's a fact. And by the way, who among us makes more Eagle Scouts than any other religion? Yeah, Mormons. Because it's that's part of their thing. Be prepared. Be a man. Or if you're a woman, be a woman. And okay, what the hell does that mean? That means you better know how to do some shit too, because it doesn't matter how pretty you are. Lovely shade of lipstick, but nobody cares. That's where, like, we're literally going to that place where it's like, okay, you're pretty, but what can you do? Like, what do you do? Well, I'm pretty. Okay. Nope. You can't come with us. That's where we're heading here. Well, it depends on where you're at, John. Again, one of the things and I think I took it out of the book, but one of the things that I was going to do was have people tell me where they're at, what their living situation is, pay me just enough money that I can sit down with somebody who I can train to do this with me, and then I can train them to look up all the resources and whatnot in your area, and then I'll break it down and go over it, figure out what it is, and then I'll give you a plan for your area. I took it out of the book because I didn't want everybody to be able to do that, because I have a funny feeling I'd spend literally 24 hours a day sitting, mapping out aqueducts and whatnot in your area. Well, that's the thing. The Latter-day Saints are armed to the teeth for a couple reasons. Number one, for home defense, but number two, because once you've had the United States Army sent after you with the directive to kill you, it makes you a little bit nervous, a little edgy. So, they are in a position where they're willing to defend themselves. All right. Hey, man, the First Amendment only exists because of the Second Amendment. Period. End of story. The Beehive House. No. Sounds interesting, though. So, bottom line, if you don't have some of this right now, literally, it's just, beans, pinto beans. But think about this. I think this is like $5. It's 120 servings, and it's 104 servings, 120 calories per serving. Okay. So, what are we talking here? We're talking basically 12,000 calories. So 12,000 calories, could you survive a week on 12,000 calories? Absolutely. Absolutely. But wait, how much protein's in here? 7 grams per serving. So that means that there are 700 grams? What? Is that right? Is that actually right? 104 times 7. That's 700. Well, shit, man. That's a lot of protein. I mean, honestly, and I'm not trying to be funny, but that explains why Mexicans have a higher birth weight for their babies and a less infant mortality than the United States of America does. Yeah, that's not a joke, because they eat refried beans and they also eat a lot of extremely spicy food. The spicy food reduces inflammation in their body, and the beans give them protein and fiber. So they have all these fat little healthy babies. It's great. You need lots of water and gas to boil it. Well, you got to be careful about boiling anything that's going to smell. My opinion is soak them, obviously, for as long as possible without them going bad. I have to check and see what that is, but I'm sure that 24 hours is safe. Once they're soaked, and you might even be able to put them outside in the water, in the sun, kind of like sun tea, just to soften them up, so that cooking them only takes a very tiny plus a can of sardine. Are you kidding? Literally, that's El Rayo, that's the worst advice ever, dude. I can smell sardines from a mile away. Dogs everything can smell sardines. Remember that if the grid goes down, when the grid goes down, I have to retrain myself to say this correctly, because the grid will not survive. It cannot survive. The grid is not hardened against any type of cyber attack. It's not hardened against an EMP. It's not hardened against a massive solar flare, which we get all the fucking time. Every 150 years, we get a massive solar flare. We haven't had one in 170 years. Now, there was one in 2012 that, thank God, was pointed away from us, just barely. But literally, if that fucking thing had hit the planet Earth, we'd all be dead. It was a massive coronal mass ejection. You're talking about hundreds of trillions of tons of superheated plasma heading straight at Earth at 40,000 miles an hour. No, thank you. So, good news is that a massive solar flare like that one, a massive coronal mass ejection, is extremely rare. We don't have one that we're aware of in recorded human history. Now, could that be what melted the polar ice caps 12,000 years ago? Or not really 12,600 years ago, more like 11,800 years ago. And the reason I say that was because 12,600 years ago, we had receding, the ice age was receding. And then all of a sudden we had the Younger Dryas period. Just that we were just tossed right back into the deepest part. The Laurentide ice sheet and the Cordilleran ice sheet just back to more than 100% overnight. The climate plunged into the darkest, deepest part of the ice age again, and then 1,200 years later, it was over. Like almost overnight, it was over, and that's what we're trying to figure out now. Was that a massive solar flare? Right now, they are taking everyone off the grid with solar and batteries. Yeah, that won't help. Your solar panels cannot handle this kind of energy. Yeah, well, the reality, Mary, is that this is the Carrington event. We see these Carrington events like dendrochronology. Like, what kind of snore fest is that? Well, it's a snore fest, but reading tree rings can tell you a lot about what's happened over the last several thousand years. And it appears that we have, some people call it a Miyake event. That's what the Japanese call it. We would just call it a massive solar flare or coronal mass ejection. And they happen all the time. Our obliquitous axis takes it's actually 25,960 years. So we're on the same page. Yeah, I mean, we're starting to figure it out. We're starting to figure out that there are cycles, and then there are bigger cycles and bigger cycles, and we get to a point where we're figuring out that there are 106,000 year cycles. So, but the wobble of the Earth is definitely, that's what the ancients called the Great Year. Now, when you're talking about the Earth is spinning on its axis, but the axis is wobbling, and this wobble every 2,000 years, I believe it's 2,060 years, points to a different star system. So at one point, it pointed to Taurus, and then from Taurus, it moved to whatever the goat is, not Capricorn, but whatever the goat is. And then it moved to Pisces, which it's at now, and it's about to switch over to Aquarius. And it does this every 2,000 years until it goes in a complete circle. And it starts back. Well, while it's doing that, and while we're going around the sun, that also changes the amount of sun the northern hemisphere gets or the southern hemisphere gets. And now this is where it gets weird. There's also a 12,500 year cycle. And the 12,500 year cycle is a cycle of energy current that comes from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. It's called the galactic current sheet. And it switches from negative to positive and back to negative and back to positive. And it looks like, we've mapped it out now, it looks like this wave, as this thing spins and as these waves come out from the center, like they hit us about every 12,500 years. Huh. That's interesting. How long is the Great Year of Precession? So, like I said, Buckzilla, 25,920 years. I think I said 60 years. So it's 25,920 years. I knew it was just under 26,000 years. A lot of people just round it up. But here's the interesting part. we change 1 degree in this 360 degrees. We change 1 degree every 71.6 years, which is approximately 1 human lifetime. Who's keeping track? Who's watching this 1 degree of precession at a time? Because back in the old days, obviously people didn't even live 70 years. So when did they first start calculating this shit? That's crazy. But again, these are zodiac ages. And by the way, I screwed up the end of the age, because instead of, I said 2060, it's 2160. 2160 years is each age. So for instance, and this is gonna mess with you guys a little, so sit down. This, by the way, this is why I wrote the book about survival. This is why I'm doing everything I'm doing, because on top of everything that is known by science right now, like our grid is shit. It's 60, 70, 80 years old, and it should only be 40 years old maximum. All of these big transformers that cost millions of dollars, that weigh 800,000 pounds, that take years and years to make and send to where they need to go. Yeah, they're all over 40 years old. And the life cycle is 40 years, period. That's it. They're all older than that. And so we can't possibly change out all 9,000 of them, not in the next 20 years. So we know that the grid's going to go down for some reason or another, period. Now, is it going to be a localized thing? The eastern part of the United States, the western part, Texas, which has its own grid? We don't know. Could just be one area. Well, in that case, you only need to survive maybe a few weeks until help gets here from the other part of the United States. Maybe at that point, we'll stop invading other fucking countries and we'll fix our own. Who knows? So it's always hope. But here's my point. What I study is a little bit broader than that. So back during the time of like the Minoans, up until about 4,500 years ago, maybe, yeah, it ended about 4,500 years ago. The Minoans worshipped a bull. And they worship bulls, and their symbol was a bull. And as you remember, the guy came down with the tablets and he said, don't worship bulls anymore, especially that golden calf, unless it looks like Donald Trump. Then you big golden one, that's fine. But don't worship graven idols. And then, by the way, that's the beginning of Judaism, and they sacrificed the ram. Just so happens that we had just gone through a 2160-year cycle, the age of Taurus, and moved over to the age of Aries, the ram. Now, interestingly enough, for 2160 years, the age of Aries was the predominant age until just about the time of Jesus. And then we entered the age of Pisces. And what exactly did Jesus feed 5,000 people with? Because I think it was 2 fish. And what is the symbol for Pisces? 2 fish. And didn't he say that I will be with you until the end of the age? Mentioned something about going to the house of the Aquarian, something along those lines. Well, it's a funny thing about that. The age of Aquarius, like that song by the Fifth Dimension, the age of Aquarius is about to start in the next 20 years. Weird, right? So the age of Aquarius is about to start. Now, the good news is that the age of Aquarius is supposed to be the age of enlightenment, because Aquarians back in their day were the water bearers, the people who found water. If you lived in the desert, let's say that you just had a bunch of people that you lived with, 10,000 of them. And you had to pick the most important guy out of, or gal out of 10,000. It would probably be, if you lived in a desert, it would probably be the person who could find water, the Aquarian. And they called them the Aquarian, but what they really were was they were really the scientists of their day. They were the ones who could read the rocks, look at the soil, figure out where the most likely, and they're the ones who came up with dowsing rods. That's a fucking mind blower, because I've seen people who I trust, who I know would never lie about something like that. They would never risk their reputation over something like that. And I've watched them use dowsing rods, and sure as shit, they were absolutely 100% accurate. They found water exactly where the dowsing rods said they would. What is that? Well, it's something that we don't know yet. We haven't figured it out. It looks like magic to us. But remember, magic today is just simply science 100, 1,000 years from now. People look back and they go, oh man, that wasn't magic. Well, I get that. That was easy. Well, not back then it wasn't. Back then it was magic. So that's where we're at now. Here's the issue. I know for a fact that there are some serious things going on in the solar system, as well as the galactic current sheet, along with all the other little things that you would expect, like, you know, solar flares. Every 150, 160 years, on average, you get a solar flare. Okay, well, it's only been like 170 something. So could we go for 200 years? Yeah. Could we go for 250 years? Could there be another 75 years before we have a massive solar flare? Sure. Of course, there is a problem with that theory, and that is that if you understand the galactic current sheet and you watch all of the outer planets, you can see that their behavior is changing, which means they're being influenced by something. The big red spot on Jupiter, which was a storm that was 300-mile-an-hour winds for basically the last several hundred years that we've witnessed, it's gone now. It's dissipating. Well, that's the biggest planet in the solar system. What's changing the dynamics of wind on Jupiter? Something very big. What else? Well, let's see. The storm that we've watched travel back and forth across Neptune for, I want to say, the last 160 years since it was discovered. We've watched this storm travel back and forth depending on what season it was, literally. And all of a sudden, it's completely reversed. It's not acting correct at all. So then the question becomes, what's affecting these planets? Well, if it is the galactic current sheet, that means that eventually when that current sheet gets to the sun, it's going to basically inject a tremendous amount of energy into the sun that the sun doesn't really, it doesn't hurt the sun, but it doesn't need it. And when it happens, what it appears, and this is, again, you know, this is like you have to remember, science is so young from the standpoint, especially solar science. What it looks like happens based on the fact that we didn't believe there was such a thing as a micronova 100 years ago, but now we know that there are hundreds of different types of nova, hundreds of them. Everything from tiny to, yes, the star blew up and it no longer exists. That is a massive supernova. Okay, so what does it mean to have a micronova? Well, it just means that this galactic current sheet, as it's traveling, as it's moving out in this spiral, the way that the Milky Way looks, as it's traveling out, as it comes across these different stars, including ours, if those stars have built up a shell of dust, of just galactic crap floating around because of their gravity, and that is sitting on the surface, then that means that those stars are building up heat and energy inside the star. Now, is that good for the star? We have no idea. We don't know if it's good for it, if it's bad for it, if it's dangerous, but we do know this. When the current sheet gets to it, it adds an additional amount of energy to it. And that additional amount of energy makes it blow off that shell. So now all of a sudden you have this basically sneeze. Imagine just the sun sneezing and all of the dust, all of the debris that's built up. You see sun diving comets all the time that disappear into the sun. Well, where's that material go? It's there. Okay, but what about stuff like asteroids? I mean, there are hundreds of thousands. There's a whole asteroid belt. Beyond that, there's the Oort cloud, which is just this enormous amount of shit floating around outside our solar system, like this bubble of hundreds of billions of damn near planet-sized things. Some comets, some are made of methane, some are made of rocks. And every time one of those bumps into another one, it sends it into the inner solar system. And what happens when it gets to the inner solar system? Well, it probably gets sucked into Jupiter or the sun, one or the other. Those are the two biggest things in our solar system. Thank God they're there, because they're like our big guardians. They suck up all the crap floating around, and that way it doesn't hit us most of the time. But what happens to it? Well, it appears that every 12,000 years or so, the sun just sneezes and blows all of that shit off. And it gets blown back out into the outer reaches, which of course is the Oort cloud again, at which point it's sitting there. So we're only 93 million miles away. Now I know that sounds relatively far. I wouldn't want to walk, but if you think about 93 million miles, that's only a few days away if something's moving very, very fast. Now, at the speed of light, 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum. That's what is that? 100 and what do we figure out? 180,000 miles per second. So 180,000 miles per second, 93 million miles doesn't take that long. Yeah, well, that's the thing. As we're getting closer, Tim, we're starting to really sort of understand the bigger stuff. And the irony to me, to answer your question about when the next one is due, the irony to me is it's almost like a test. It's almost like a test. Because it appears, based on everything I've studied in the last 35, almost 40 years, it appears that we get to a point as a civilization where we become advanced enough to start to realize what's about to happen. And then we get reset. We get reset. Back to the Stone Age? In the past, yeah, back to the Stone Age, I think several times. This last time, I don't think so. This last time, I don't think we got reset all the way back to the Stone Age. Because if you look at where we find civilization, We found civilization that we thought started a couple thousand years ago. And then we said, oh, well, no, it's 4,000 years ago, the Sphinx. Oh, no, it's 7,000 years ago. It's Stonehenge. Oh, no, it's probably more like 9 or 10,000 years ago, because the Sphinx is obviously water damaged and there hasn't been any rainfall for at least 7,500 years. So if it stopped raining 7,500 years ago, that means that it must have rained like hell for at least a couple thousand years in order to damage the Sphinx and the surrounding area with water damage. Okay, so we can push it back to 9,000, maybe 9,500 years. All right, but you know what? That's pretty modern. Oh, what about Göbekli Tepe? Well, now we're starting to get back into like 5 digits. Now we're 10,000, maybe even 11,000 years old. Wow, Göbekli Tepe. That rewrites everything. Karahan Tepe actually rewrites even more. What? Yeah, it's older. It goes all the way back to the end of the last ice age, when all of these cataclysms would have happened. So there's a record of these cataclysms. Not exactly. See, we don't understand what they were trying to tell us. They had pictographs, they had all kinds of strange things that they carved. The craftsmanship shows that they had a division of labor that allowed some of the men to literally become stone workers and artisans to the point where they could carve for a living. That's all they did. Well, wait a minute. If you're a hunter-gatherer society, nope, they weren't. Yeah, but agriculture didn't start until like just a few thousand years ago. Nope, that's not true either. Well, fuck, what do we know? Oh, we don't know shit. We don't know anything. We don't know a damn thing. Now, is it possible that we've been around a lot longer than we think? Well, when I started studying this, Homo sapiens were 20,000 years old. Before that, we were Cro-Magnon man, and before that, we were Neanderthals, and we evolved from that. Now we found out that Neanderthals are a completely separate species, similar, extremely similar, parallel to us, but not us, as well as 4 or 5 other species of humans, hominids, just like us. Could they talk? Probably. Could they think like us? Yeah, probably. Were they clever? Yep. Did they understand like family? Did they love each other? Yep, absolutely, no question about that. Did they have a concept of an afterlife and God? Yep. How do you know that? Because you don't bury a warrior with all of the things that you need to survive in his grave unless you expect him to need those things in the afterlife, because you need them right fucking now. Well, wait, so like a flint axe? Yep. A knife that was extremely sharp? Yep. Arrows? Oh, yeah. And in spite of the fact that arrows were extremely difficult to make, a good straight arrow was worth its weight in gold. But yes, they buried their dead, the warriors. Now, some of the women, they decorated. The children, they gave toys to. They put ochre on them. So they basically painted their faces to make them look pretty for the afterlife. Neanderthals? Yeah, Neanderthals. Wow. Okay, this is getting weird. Yeah, well, turns out Homo sapiens have been around for 290,000 years for sure. for sure. So is that it? That's it? Well, that's what we thought until we found cut lumber that was literally cut in order to put it together to form a house that is 460,000 years old. Monkeys did that? Monkeys? First of all, if you're going to cut notches into big pieces of timber so that you can notch them and fit them together to form a roof that will withstand rain, wind, earthquakes, whatever, you're going to need tools. You're going to need damn good tools. Well, you can also say that, stratigraphy doesn't matter either. But at some point, you have to say, okay, where did you find this shit? You found it under 20 feet of soil up on the bank of a river? Under 20 feet of soil. Man, that's a lot of stratigraphy. I'll give you another one. Well, that's, there you go, Tim. I just explained it. Part of it's radiocarbon dating, and part of it is stratigraphy. So here's another one. The Moai that are on Easter Island. When Thor Heyerdahl, very famous explorer, when he went and excavated one to see how tall it actually was, and he found out that it went 30 feet down farther into the dirt than he expected. He thought it was sitting on the dirt, maybe a couple feet under the dirt. And you want to see what the base looked like. Well, they kept going and kept going and kept going. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that picture. Bunch of guys standing around a trench, and there's this huge moai, and only the top part is sticking out of the ground. The rest has been buried. Well, it's a funny thing about that. See, you can tell if somebody has filled in a hole or if it's been filled in by sediment just falling. Now, what I mean by that is, take your car, for example. If you live in the desert and you leave your car outside for 20 minutes, it's got dust on it. 20 years, you can't tell what it is. It's completely covered in dust. Completely covered in dust. 200 years, you might not even see it, depending on where it is, depending on the wind, depending on how much dust and dirt bury it. How long does it take on an island with relatively high humidity, therefore not a lot of dust, no volcanoes nearby? How long does it take to bury a statue under 30 feet of dirt? No, Matthew, they didn't do that. That is, unfortunately, what everybody, including myself, was taught in school. Totally wrong, though. That's a total bullshit lie told by a bunch of arrogant Europeans. Thank God we're not part of Europe anymore, because those guys are fucking loons. They literally made that story up. And the reason that they made that story up is because the first time somebody from Europe visited the island, there were still lots of trees. But when they went back 60, 80 years later, the whole island was barren and nobody was left. Well, what happened to them? Well, number one, it turns out DNA proves that they've been trading with the people in Peru for 4,500 years minimum, because their DNA has been getting exchanged with the Peruvians back and forth. So we know that they weren't stuck on the island. They could have left anytime they want. But the other thing that I can tell you is that rats, they never had mice or rats on Easter Island. until the first ship got there from Europe. And the rats, the big ass rats that were on the ship, got onto the island, and there were no predators, none. So all the seabirds ate all the eggs, ate all the chicks, ate all of the palm trees, ate all the seeds, ate everything on the island. Their population literally exploded into the tens of millions and then collapsed once they had completely destroyed the island. And the only seabirds that apparently survived were the ones that were off on the rocks around the island. And then they repopulated the island after the collapse. I know. And we were told, no. Look, savages. They're all savages. It's like, everybody? Well, if they don't have blonde hair and blue goddamn eyes, they're savages. That's a fact. Oh, all right. So that's weird. How'd they make moais? Well, we don't know. How old are the moais? We don't know. Is there any record? Well, yeah, there's lots of records. They're written in Rongo Rongo. Okay, well, fucking read them. Oh, nobody can read Rongo Rongo. That's going to be an issue because now we've got the script, we've got all the records, and we just don't know what they say. One thing that you should know about them, though, is there's no basalt on the island. As far as like the that dark gray, really hard rock, basalt, whatever you want to call it. It's not on the island. But there are moai on the island, a little tiny group of moai on the island at one point of the island that are made of basalt. But there's no basalt on the island. And they're big moai. Nobody could figure out, like, where the hell did these things come from? There is zero basalt on this island. Not even like a pebble. And then my favorite Frenchman ever, Jacques Cousteau, went to Easter Island to explore the waters off the island. Now, unfortunately, he did not write down where he saw this, but he did make a note in his journal when he was exploring Easter Island that just off the coast, in about 90 feet of water, he found an outcropping of basalt. And it appeared to have been chiseled or mined. Something looked very man-made about it. That's interesting. In 90 feet of water. Well, let's see. When was the last time Easter Island was 90 feet higher up out of the Pacific Ocean? Oh, I know. During the last ice age. During the last ice age, that would have been high and dry. And it would have been look, obviously somebody was using that. He said it looked quarried. Well, it was quarried. The only problem is it was quarried at least 10,000 years ago. There's no way that it could have been quarried after 9,500 BCE. Well, the sea level was 400 feet lower during the last ice age. At the height of the last ice age, or at the height of the Younger Dryas, 12,000 years ago, the sea levels were 400 feet lower. As a matter of fact, there was no Persian Gulf. The Straits of Hormuz, no Straits of Hormuz. The entire valley that is now the Persian Gulf would have been a subtropical paradise because you would have had 4 rivers flowing into one end of it. And then the Strait of Hormuz would have been the end of the valley where the water would have flowed out into the Indian Ocean, into the Gulf of Oman. The Persian Gulf is literally not figuratively. It is literally the Garden of Eden. I figured that out all by my little lonesome about 25 years ago, because they say that four rivers flowed into the headwaters, and then those four rivers, the confluence of those four rivers, flowed directly into the Persian or the Garden of Eden. Well, there's only two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. But 25 years ago, satellite photography found two extinct rivers that flowed into the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Okay, well, there you go. But then, of course, people were like, well, but it's the Persian Gulf. It's the Persian Gulf now. But it would have been one enormous valley. Because remember, the Persian Gulf's only 290 feet deep at the deepest part. We're talking about sea level rise of 490 feet. So it would have literally been 200 feet above sea level, the entire valley. So it would have had a huge river running through the middle of it. During the Ice Age, it would have been subtropical because it was down in that valley. So it would have been much warmer than the steppes up above, like Turkey in that area. Yeah, it was the Garden of Eden. There's no question in my mind about that. Yeah, someday I'll write a book about that. But, one book at a time. And, oh, by the way, buy the book. If you haven't bought the book, buy the book. But, yeah, that's one of the things I found over the years that I thought was very interesting because nobody else had ever said it. So I asked a few people, and they said, oh, I never thought about that. Wow, that's really interesting. And I went, huh, I had an original thought. That's kind of cool. I like it. It's always nice to have an original thought once in a while. It was like the day, this was 20 years ago, that I was looking at the pyramids, and I realized that as I was scrolling over the King's Chamber, just off to the north of the top, what would have been the point of the Great Pyramid, I realized that the number that I was looking at as far as latitude was 299,792,458. And I thought, 299,792,458 is the speed of light in meters per second of vacuum. The fuck are the odds of that? So I called my buddy Randall Carlson and I said, Randall, did you know this? And he said, what? No, are you serious? And I said, yeah, look it up. He looked it up and he said, well, I'll be damned. I had no idea. I said, I had no idea. I found it on accident. But isn't there another calculation with centimeters where you take the outside edges and you form a circle, and then the inside perimeter that touches the inside walls, and one minus the other is 299,792,000? And he said, yeah, there's the French came up with that. And I said, so the largest building ever built in history has the speed of light calculated in it twice in meters, which shouldn't exist back then? What the fuck is going on, man? He goes, well, there's a lot of controversy about the meter. The French started using it. They said they introduced it. They didn't say they invented it. They said they introduced it. Very big difference. And I thought, well, son of a bitch. Huh. Okay, so, you look at Newton. Newton mentioned after 20 years that the way he had done some of his calculations when it came to gravity and whatnot was through this thing that he used, and he mentioned it in the back of his book. It was just an afterthought, really. He mentioned this thing called calculus. Nobody knew what calculus was. Nobody had ever heard of calculus. And he didn't even bother to take credit for it when he came up with it. He just mentioned it 20 years after the fact in the back of another textbook that he was writing, because he wrote dozens of them that nobody read because they were so complicated nobody could understand them. And then it turns out that Pythagoras, they found a vellum book, animal skin book in a Christian monastery in I believe it was Jordan, and very, very ancient, like literally 2,000 years old, very early book, and it had hymns, Christian hymns. So they realized, well, originally this wasn't a hymn book because the vellum that it's made of is older than Christianity. So wonder if there's anything else written in here. So they used several different types of photography, and they found out that what was written in the book was the beginning of calculus. Pythagoras, that vellum-bound book had belonged to Pythagoras, and Pythagoras was working on developing calculus 2,000 years before Newton. And of course, they'd scraped all that crap off so that they could then write in what was truly important, which were some Christian hymns. And when they announced that, the first thought that went through my mind was, calculus is what gave us the modern age. The ability to fly, the ability to escape Earth's gravity and go to the moon. A lot of things. A lot of things. Can you imagine if we had had calculus 2,000 years earlier than we did? That would have been very interesting. So, yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, did Newton know of calculus? Had he heard of calculus? Had he read some ancient scrolls that mentioned this secret formula? I mean, remember that he was very much into magic. He was very much into alchemy, which of course now we just call chemistry. But alchemy was a big deal back then. Some people thought it was evil and it was the devil. Some people just thought it was science and it was common sense. Magic, which is science. So whatever you want to call it, he was extremely into alchemy and, the philosopher's stone, etc. Maybe he found something amongst some ancient scrolls that gave him an idea of what calculus could have been, and then he developed it. Maybe after, what would it have been? Almost 2,000 years, because the Greeks had it. I think Pythagoras was a couple hundred BC. No, actually, I think it was sooner than that. I think it probably would have been right around the time of Christ, because I know that I believe the Romans are the ones who killed him on accident. Man, talk about the screw up of all screw ups. They invaded the city in order to capture him so that they could have his genius. And when the Roman centurions entered his home, he was so deep in his work that he didn't realize the city was under siege. And when they kicked open his door, he got up and started yelling at them. And one of the centurions stabbed him and killed him. You had one job. One job. Son of a bitch. Yeah, well, not all centurions were super smart. Let's see. Oh man, one of my YouTube guys mentioned the Library of Alexandria. Oof, God, I can't even imagine. I don't even like to think about it because it makes me so upset to think about the Library of Alexandria. But it doesn't make me any more upset than it does to think about the hundreds of thousands of documents that the Vatican has sitting in tunnels underneath the Vatican that nobody's ever read. They don't know how to read them. I mean, they probably do now, but I mean, for the last 2,000 years, they've been collecting up stuff and putting it underground. Are you telling me that they have actually figured out how to read all of it? Like, oh, they could read ancient Aramaic. No, they couldn't back then, but we can now. Oh, okay. Well, so do they have anything in those tunnels that might date back that far? Tens of thousands of things. Oh, well, what about, ancient relics? Yeah, stuff that they think proves Jesus, I'm sure. Things that they might be afraid disprove Jesus. Oh, yeah, guaranteed, which is stupid. You either believe or you don't believe. So that's it. But, that's the crazy part is there are institutions out there like the Vatican. They're sitting on an amount of knowledge that if we had access to as humanity, maybe I'm not smart enough to figure out what some of it means, but all of us together, yeah, that would be very interesting. Oh, Pythagoras, the guy who came up with calculus the first time, but nobody knew it because the vellum that he was working on was scraped clean, and then they wrote a bunch of Christian hymns over it. Luckily, we could still read what was underneath that stuff. Our technology nowadays is pretty cool. Once we figure out who we are, and by the way, I started this whole rant about this because it seems as though we get to a point where we're just about to figure out who we are, who we've been, where we've been, what has actually happened to the human race the entire time we've been on this little rock floating around in the middle of space. And then time's up. Time for the reset. Klaus Schwab is a clown. Klaus Schwab is an idiot. The World Economic Forum is a distraction, and it's silly, and it'll never happen. It was a great excuse for a bunch of powerful people to go to Davos and hire $4,500 a night Russian hookers, do whatever they wanted, and nobody could see them because it was an important business meeting. So the press had to be kept away. Great. You don't get that kind of security in Manhattan. You can't just go someplace and say, make sure that no paparazzi come around. Okay, how do we keep them out? Well, if it's Davos, you know exactly how to keep them out. You seal off the city and only let the ones in that work for you. Simple. So, the thing is that I don't believe anything that the government says anymore. I can't afford to. I can't afford to make that mistake again. So now I'm going to put my faith in science, things that I can prove, and then things, and I'm also going to put my faith in faith, the things that I know are true, the things that I can feel are truth. So if I said to you, hey, I had a conversation with God this afternoon. He told me that the little ones, that the children are the most important human beings among us, and that we can never hurt them under any circumstances. If we go to war, if whatever, kill each other if we have to, but never, ever, ever hurt the children. God told me that directly. You'd go, that sounds about right. Okay, yeah, that sounds like something God would say. If I told you, hey, God told me that we're supposed to love each other, we're not actually supposed to go to war. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to actually help criminals, the crazy people, the elderly, the disabled, like anybody who needs help, we're supposed to reach out to them and help them in any way that we can. Yeah, that sounds like something God would say. Can't kiss your wife if she's on her period, though, because she's unclean. What? Who the fuck said that? Big man said that. No. How does that fit in with you have to love everyone all the time, except if they have their period? That's gross. That's actually stupid. I mean, it sounds dumb. Your wife has to what, like, go sit in the doghouse? Yeah, you gotta go. Take her outside because she's, yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Last sentence was George Carlin. Yeah, well, that's true. Unfortunately, he was a very sharp guy. He got very frustrated at the end, but he was right on. So, anyway, yeah, things are going to get very spicy in the world. And if you're interested in helping me figure out where we go, it's getting to the point now where it's no longer something that we should consider in the next 20 years. It's something that needs to come to fruition in the next year. I doubt that the system has an entire year left, but it's going to get ugly. It's going to get, and will it stay ugly? I don't know. I mean, we may not get into World War III, although I don't see any way around it. That's literally our plan. Our plan is World War III. The powers that be want World War III. It's good for everybody. I mean, not us. You know, not us, but everybody else. Yeah, that's so sad. I just saw that New Orleans is sinking very quickly, unfortunately. I love New Orleans. The only time I was there was, a few days after Katrina. I went there to help people, and well, no, that's not true. I mean, I was there before Katrina as well, and the people were super cool. But what really impressed me was how nice they were after Katrina. Been singing for 40 years. All right, maybe got another 40 years. That's plenty of time to party. Trump is helping accelerate the process. Yeah, well, it's not really Trump though. It's the people who make him feel like he needs to be very careful if he wants to survive this presidency. Those are the people who are doing this. Well, good evening. So yeah, it's if you're interested, send me a message and let's start figuring this out, because I like Colorado. I think that the growing season is not super conducive. My only concern with greenhouses is that the highest crime rate area in Colorado is 40 miles straight south of there. And I get the impression that all those greenhouses didn't pop up to grow arugula. I think that they're all failed weed farms, and that everybody, because there's so much water there. But again, if there's water, great. If they're charging you a tremendous amount for it, no, that's not good. If the electricity is ridiculously expensive, that doesn't help. I'd be very curious to see how well solar would work, or if any of these places that are for sale have solar, because that's really the key. And then, of course, after looking very carefully at the Missouri, Arkansas area, there is tremendous amount of groundwater there. I mean, so much groundwater, it's ridiculous. And where there's groundwater, there are lakes and streams, and where there are lakes and streams and rivers, there's fish and fresh water. These are two things that cannot be underestimated. I mean, at some point you have to realize that, going to Idaho, that's great. Very short growing season, and how many deer are there exactly? Because everybody in Idaho is going to be hunting for them the minute the power goes off. That's it. Now, hopefully, the people that are hunting them know how to preserve that meat so it doesn't just go bad over the course of a week, and then they have to go kill more, because that is not a long-term. That's not a long-term idea. Yeah, Idaho winters are very, very tough. So, I know that it does get cold in Missouri, it gets cold in Arkansas, but it's almost like a different kind of cold, really. So, and the growing seasons are awesome. And that's really a big concern as well. Staying out of everybody's way, staying away from major cities. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Little Rock. That's obvious. And when I went through Memphis the last time, everybody told me, don't be in Memphis at night. It's like, really? I said, it's that bad? And they were like, oh yeah, it's that bad. You don't want to be in Memphis at night. Okay. There's some probably good places in Washington State as well. The only thing that would worry me about Washington State is that I don't want to be anywhere near Hanford. I don't want to be anywhere near a nuclear power plant or dump for a nuclear power plant. Well, I don't think there'll be FEMA camps. I mean, there's 330 million Americans. If the grid goes down, there'll only be 30 million. Those aren't my numbers. Those are numbers that I get from the government, from all the different agencies who have done this. They all say that the mortality rate will be over 90%. That's a lot. It's a lot of dead people. And if you're in a major city, I don't even want to tell you what that's going to smell like, let alone the amount of disease, the amount of, just think about feral dogs, Oh, I got a Glock. Okay, you got 15 rounds and 25 dogs. Good luck. Not talking about the grid. Well, that is my biggest concern. That is the number one concern. Obviously, if the grid doesn't go down, if you're already a client of mine and you already own silver, you're set. You're set. It's going to keep going up. Period. It's gone up since 2020. It's gone up 1,620%. From $5 to $90, where it is now. So if you own silver, you're good. If you own a lot of silver, you're really, really good. Don't trade it in unless you have to. I'm not worried about nuclear war either. It's just, it's a zero-sum game. Nobody wins, so nobody's going to play. Who wants to have at this point, I believe we've got about 220 warheads on every Ohio class submarine, every boomer. And, when those things surface, you don't want to be that guy that shot at us. Well, again, if the grid goes down and you've got ammo, you're going to get yourself killed because you don't win gunfights. Not in a city. If you're in the city and you start shooting, you let everybody within a mile in every direction know that there's something worth defending at your house. So you may shoot the one guy, but it won't just be the one guy, because as people get more and more desperate, somebody will catch you outside with your gun in your holster at some point, if that's what it takes. So you don't want to get in a gunfight. Again, security through obscurity. Keep your head down, stay quiet, just let everybody do what they're going to do. The bow and arrow. Well, I suppose if you shoot somebody with a bow and arrow, and you're Robin Hood, you could probably silence them before they scream bloody murder, but maybe not. I'm not taking that chance. I'd rather just have them not even want to fuck around on my street. Are we to get to that point? At this point, the grid going down is absolutely inevitable. It's a matter of, is it the western part of the United States, the eastern part, Texas? Is it all of it? If the entire grid goes down just by overuse, or God forbid, asymmetric warfare, you can take the grid out. Literally, you can take the grid out by having 10 guys, literally 10 guys that all have a Barrett. It's a 50 cal Browning machine gun round. It's 850 grain, moving at 3,400 feet a second. The amount of energy is about 13,200 pound-feet. And you hit one of those large transformers, one of the big, 750 kilovolt transformers at a substation. If 10 guys picked 10 substations and went and shot 4 or 5 rounds into each one of those, that would start a cascade effect that would overload the entire grid of the United States. That's not me saying that. I'm not the one saying that. I'm reading the government's reports about how vulnerable our systems are. And when I read these reports, I think to myself, this whole thing about domestic terrorism is bullshit. If anybody wanted to destroy the United States, they could have done it a long time ago for less than a few $1,000s. I mean, there's 300,000 fighting age Chinese single males in the United States that are unaccounted for. 300,000. Well, okay, but what about the Somalis? Okay, yeah, it's a problem. What about Mexicans? Well, most of them are here to build your house, or cut your lawn, or wash your dishes, and when you go to a restaurant. I have a hard time. I'm beating on Mexicans because I like them so much. But what about people from China? Well, the Chinese don't share any of our cultural values whatsoever. None. Zero. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that if they came to our country, it wasn't because they wanted to be a part of our country. So why would they be here? I don't know, some ulterior motive. Right. Oh, shit, that sucks. Yeah, sure does. So if there's 300,000 fighting age males in the United States that are completely invisible to us, they're unaccounted for, and we don't know where they are or what they're doing, could they take down our power grid? Yeah. Tonight. In an hour. In 1 hour. Now, they could wait until tomorrow when the power grid's at maximum capacity and will go down the fastest. Well, how hard is it for them to coordinate? They call each other on the cell phone and they say, "Are you in position?" Okay, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start doing, what Uncle she told us to. Okay, me too. Yeah, me too. Okay, me three. You hang up. Everybody starts shooting at their designated transformer. That's it. That's it. That's all that needs to happen. 5, 10 rounds into each one of those transformers. 10 guys, 10 substations. Now, what the actual electrical engineers said is 9 substations. Oh, that's the point. It could have been Osama bin Laden, but it wasn't. It could have been Al Qaeda, but it wasn't. It could have been anybody over the last 26 years, but it wasn't. So could it be the Iranians? Hell yeah, absolutely. Could it be some other radical organization that hates the United States for God only knows what reason? Yup, absolutely. Could it be a small group of fundamentalists? Yeah. Like, fundamentalists, Muslims. Sure, could be fundamentalist Christians. Well, that doesn't sound right. Well, I don't know. I mean, look, if they want everybody to live the way that the Amish live, there's an easy solution to that one, man. Knock out the grid. Because if you knock out the grid, it would take us a dozen years to start to really rebuild the grid. And the reason I say that is because when the cascading effect happens and you're overloading and blowing up substation after substation, okay, well, then what do? Well, first of all, you call on all of your allies to come help you. Okay, like who? Well, I mean, all of them. Okay. So Germany makes those transformers. Okay. Who else? South Korea. Okay. China makes them. China could probably bring some over to us while they help us rebuild the right way. That's my point. We've pissed off all of our friends. Exactly. We don't have any friends. We only have interests. So does that put us in a dangerous situation? Not for now. I don't think that anybody's going to blow up our substations for now. But the fact that they could means that if you could be prepared, you should. Yeah. I mean, maybe they never do. Okay, well, so what's an extra couple $100 worth of food gonna do? Kill you? No, because when you decide that, okay, I've pushed it as far as I want to push it, I took the bag of rice that I had, the 20-pound bag of rice, and I put it in the freezer for 2 weeks, and I took it out. Now I know that there's no weevils or anything in it. It's good to go for 7 years. So what happens 7 years from now if nothing bad has happened and you've had that stored in a cool, dry place? You take it out and you give it to the food bank down the street, and they give you a receipt and you write it off on your taxes. That's it. Oh, you gave away a 20-pound bag of rice? I sure did. Wasn't a 20-pound bag of rice $50 now? Yeah. Did you pay $50 for it? No. Right now, it's like $11. Will it be $50? Yeah. Guaranteed it'll be $50. So look where prices are going now, guys. I mean, this is not bullshit. Look where the prices are going now. And then stop for just a second and go, okay, what were they before COVID? Because COVID was only 6 years ago. So 6 years and what? A couple months? Okay, so wait a minute. So that was only like what, 74 months ago? 75 months ago? Yeah, 75 months ago. And the world went completely fucking nuts. And it's never gone back. Certain things have just never gone back down. And, you know, did our pay go back down? Well, it never went up. Just the price of everything went up. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I've got salt. And of course, I have iodized sea salt. That's important to have. I got ammonia. I got bleach. You know, the nice thing about chlorine bleach is 8 drops of chlorine per gallon. You're good to go. You can sanitize literally tens of thousands of gallons of water with a gallon of chlorine. So if you don't have a gallon of chlorine bleach, get it. Just put it somewhere in a nice, cool, dry place. If you don't have ammonia, get it. Don't store it next to your chlorine, just in case. Baking soda. These are all things that are in my book, by the way. I'm not going to tell you to buy the book. Yes, I am. Buy the book. Go right there. Buy the book. By the way, if you're on YouTube, I don't have a thing where you can buy the book yet. That's bad. I'm going to do that as soon as we get off this live stream, which should be right now. So you guys have a great night. I will talk to you tomorrow night. What's tomorrow? Thursday. And of course, everybody that buys one now gets a signed copy. I'm signing the first couple hundred copies for sure. Cream of tartar. Yeah, I mean, it didn't help Tartaria very much, but it might help you. That's a nerd joke. Only nerds will get that joke, and that's okay. All right. Now, let's see here. I'm curious to see how many subs do I have now. All right, let's find out. Let's do this. Hmm. 119,940. Pretty sure it went down by 13 since yesterday, even though I've gotten 20 people to sign up. Tic Tac hates me. It's okay. I'm not super fond of them either. So, all right. Ranch property in Texas, still on the table, but I've got to make sure that the fracking that's going on north of there in Oklahoma doesn't destroy the aquifer. And by the way, T. Boone Pickens bought up pretty much the entire aquifer at the northern end of Texas, which sucks. HowTube. Yes, you can go to HowTube. If you go to HowTube, I'm on there, and you can buy the book on HowTube. So, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.